Fyodor Dostoevsky stands among the titans of world literature, an author whose novels plug into the darkest corridors of the human soul. His pages pulse with raw psychology, testing our notions of freedom, faith, and morality against the crushing weight of poverty, politics, and pride. Equally philosopher and psychologist, Dostoevsky dared to ask, what drives us when our ideals collapse? How do we confront the abyss within and emerge transformed? In today's world of restless ambition and moral uncertainty, his warning about the cost of unchecked reason and the redemptive power of compassion feel as urgent now as when he penned them in the 19th century Russia. He was born in Moscow in 1821, the second of 7 children, in a household where prayer and pain walked hand in hand. His mother, young and fragile, fell to tuberculosis when he was barely 16. His stern father, a brilliant physician, was murdered not long after. His own serf rumored to have struck back against a man they feared rather than loved. The boy Dostoevsky fell into books, wandering the hospital's silence corridors at nights, his heart wrapped in questions of suffering and divine justice that would never leave him. Though he trained as a military engineer, he could not ignore the siren call of literature. In 1846, Poor Folk appeared, a quiet story of humble lives and crushed hopes, praised by critics but barely keeping food on his table. He turned to the utopian socialists, convinced that the path of justice lay in the perfect society. Instead, in December 1849, the Tsar's secret police dragged him from his cell to a frozen parade ground outside St. Petersburg. Muskets were raised, the hammers cocked, and in that split second where the world seemed to hold its breath, an officer carried pardon. The rifles lowered. It was a mock execution. But the cruelty of that moment burst into his soul, forging a man who would never again dream of an easy solutions. 4 years of the Siberian exile followed, each day a lesson in humiliation and endurance. Frosted breath and the clang of chains gave way after his return in 1859 to the cramped garrets of St. Petersburg, where the new Dostoevsky emerged, humbled, enraged, and alive to the paradox of human freedom. He brought his transformed vision into Notes from Underground, where his bitter narrative declares, I'm a sick man, I'm a spiteful man, I think my liver is diseased. However, I know nothing at all about my disease. I do not know for certain what ails me. Why, after all, should one wish to be happy? Is happiness perhaps the purpose of life? Hold on to that lone candle flickering against cracked plaster, its light trembling as the underground man steps forward. In his fierce confession, we see Dostoevsky's core thesis laid bare. Humans will reject any system promising painless bliss, clinging instead the absurdity to prove their own freedom. 2 years later, he delivered Crime and Punishment, a dark symphony of guilt and grace. Picture a ghastly alley in St. Petersburg. A desperate young student, Raskolnikov, stalks his prey in an unscrupulous pawnbroker. In his fevered mind, extraordinary men may bend the moral law for the greater good. The axe falls, but the murder is not of the old women. It is of his own innocence. Night after night, Raskolnikov's footsteps echo through meager rooms. Every creak of the floor, every stray dog's bark, every heartbeat overwhelms him. His mind fractured under the weight of what he has done. To clarify this descent, we read a full page from the novel, where his guilt becomes palpable. He tried to rest his eyes, but he could not. All at once he felt as if he had no arms, no legs. He was lying in the middle of some enormous plain, and half of him had vanished. The other half had grown to such proportions that he would burst his head. He sat up, head forward, drew a deep breath, and his heart began to hammer after the exertion of the previous moments. For a few seconds he felt as if he would faint, but once more he inhaled deeply and pushed himself up, and then rose to his feet. He held his evidence in his hand, clenched his teeth, and pressing it hard to his forehead ran out of pavement with all his might, and beat his poor head until it smarted, and then sank down against the railing, feeling sick and worn out, and began to laugh loud. Here the agony of conscience becomes physical torment, and we understand why reason alone cannot answer the riddle of human evil. Dostoevsky's next novels are variations of this theme of suffering and salvation. In The Idiot, 1869, Prince Mishkin's innocence, his gentle, Christ-like love, crashes against a world steeped in cynicism and greed. We see him at the glittering salon, his eyes too honest, his compassion too blunt. Puddles of mockery gather at his feet, yet in him, Dostoevsky offers a glimpse of redemption through pure empathy. When Demons arrives in 1872, it is a plunge into the fever of political fanaticism. Idealists convinced of their own righteousness spiral into chaos, their grand plans breeding terror rather than utopia. Through them, he warns, any ideology that denies the messiness of the human heart risks unleashing its worst impulses. In the Brothers Karamazov, he stages his greatest family drama. Three brothers, Dmitri, impulsive and passionate, Ivan, brilliant and jolted by doubt, Alyosha, tender and faithful, gather around their dying father, a man of cruelty and corruption. In this climactic courtroom scene, spiritual crisis and moral accountability collide. Ivan's blasphemous probable confronts the price of freedom, while Alyosha's faith offers the promise of compassion that can even heal the deepest wounds. Dostoevsky died in 1881, his lungs failing by his vision and end. He left behind novels that are not just stories, but moral laboratories, experiments in the chemistry of the soul. In our era of algorithmic prediction and happiness formulas, he stands as an essential counterpoint. We are not machines to be optimized, nor souls to be perfect by logic alone. We crave meaning more than comfort, choice more than certainty, and in that craving lies our both greatest danger and our greatest hope. So when you face your own winter, moments of betrayal, exile, or moral crisis, remember Dostoevsky's statement: to be human is to suffer, to doubt, and yet to hope. By stepping into the darkness of his pages, we learn that suffering may be our crucible, doubt our teacher, and compassion our salvation. One trembling, courageous step at a time, we find what it truly means to live.